Just a few minutes, I'm going to be talking drag racing with Jerry Bonkowski in the NHRA Thunder Valley. That was this weekend, and it was quite the historic event, as a matter of fact. A long winning streak is snapped, and I say it's a historic event. Actually, maybe it wasn't. Well, maybe it was. Forrest didn't get his 150th victory, but there was other kind of side appeals that went out there. You know, we hear this, the historic and all that, you know, type of thing. How many sporting events are historic? Now, locally historic, okay. You know, we could suggest to you that, I don't know, when ETSU beat Arizona in the NCAA tournament in 1992, it was historic. Around here, they don't really talk about it that much in Boise. In fact, they start luring players from ETSU to Boise, come to think of it. But, you know. Anyway, by the way, college football news, they gave some predictions for the Volunteers 2019 season. Remember, 1:30, I'll be talking to SoCon John Hooper about Southern Conference race, but really the football players there, and who's going to be making up what unit. He's got the lines out there. He's also talked a little bit, done a story about the commissioner. We've been talking a lot about new commissioner Jim Schaus of the Southern Conference. Conference could go either way. Conference could be poor man's, or even, let's call it that, a poor man's A10. Without a whole lot. Yeah, it could. Or it could regress down to being the A-Sun in the Big South again. I mean, you know, and the football's been dropping. You get these people, they want to try to, well, who cares about that first game? ETSU has a better football program than Kennesaw State, please. Please, look at the national rankings. I mean, it's insanity. Well, ETSU plays in a better conference. Look at the numbers between the Big South and the SoCon these days, folks. I mean, you know, you're bragging on a conference with VMI. Now, of course, that also works with basketball, and I brag about the conference in basketball, too, but, you know. That's one of the things that I actually had the guts to ask conference about. What you're going to do? What are you going to do with VMI? I mean, you know, come on. This is ridiculous now. Anyhow, college football news. You get a lot of these stories out of Tennessee about, you know, they may be making this LSU product flip because there's nothing to write about. There are a lot of fanboys writing recruiting stories because you actually have to, and right now that's the only hope for Tennessee, because you won 9 games in the last 2 years, and so better times ahead, sell more papers than the coach didn't know what asparagus was until he was 32 years old. Anyway, the editor of College Football News, Pete Wojciak, is predicting the Vols to surpass the preseason Vegas win total projection. And then Brad Crawford says, that proves the program is on an upward trajectory. Really, a prediction proves that... How many people predicted Hillary Clinton to be the president in 2016? I mean, think about this here. But, it is not Flutak, it is Fiotak, says that the Vols have 8 games at home. Actually, it says 8 teams here. It's a typo. 8 games at home. All right. Yeah, that's a good point right there. I do think the Vols will improve their record. I'd be surprised if they didn't. The question is if it's going to be 8-4. It's going to be 6-6. All right. There's a week off to get ready for Georgia. It's going to take more than that to beat them. How many times do they have a week off before Florida? Throwing a winnable game against UAB. Winnable game against Georgia State and Chattanooga, too. Winnable against BYU. I guess they're all winnable. You tee them up, but generally speaking, you click L beside Georgia, Florida, and Alabama when you're picking the Vols schedule. Assume a win over Vandy at home to close out the regular season. Is that old school thinking now that Vandy's taken 5 of 7 from the Vols? I mean, yeah, I've said this. If you ask me to pick right now who's going to win Vols, yeah, sure. But to just snap, boom, diada, I mean, you got to pick them. If you're going down the schedule and you say, okay, Georgia State, that's a win. Chattanooga, that's a win. BYU, I will give them that as a win. You know they're going to lose to Florida. They always do. And, I mean, you go down, yeah, they'll beat UAB. South Carolina, it's in Knoxville. Come on. I mean, I'm not big on home field advantage, but I am big on, Debo Samuels isn't on the team anymore in South Carolina. So, at least the split against Mississippi State and South Carolina at home, I would probably take, if I were going to say what would the Vols lose, I would probably say they'd lose to Mississippi State in that game, to be honest. And I know that Mississippi State, a lot of losses on the defensive line and all that. Throwing a road win against Kentucky, yeah, I mean, we can talk about the losing streaks to Alabama and Georgia. Same thing, though, even though 2 years ago, Tennessee always beats Kentucky. Come on. I mean, that streak has, you put, when you're picking the Vols schedule, it's pretty predictable. L versus against Florida, L versus Alabama, W versus the FCS opponent, they're not losing to Georgia State 2-10. And Kentucky, W. Yeah, used to be Vandy, W. I would put the W beside it, don't get me wrong. It's not the automatic. Throwing a road win against Kentucky or Missouri. Missouri's going to finish in the top 3 in the SEC East, folks. Even if they don't get their probation. They got the line, they got the quarterback, trust me. Missouri, that's the sleeper. That's the sleeper in the SEC this year. They've won the division 2 times since joining the conference 7 years ago. Remember that. This will be the proverbial step forward the program so desperately needs. Well, okay, Pete Freetiak, editor of College Football News, is saying that. Defense doesn't figure, I think, to be all that great, especially now that Kirkland isn't coming back. I know Kirkland didn't have a great year last year, but I think that a lot of hopes were dependent on him. Certainly the line, what's going to happen with the line. Freetiak likes Jared Guarantano. I don't. Guarantano, play beyond an inconsistent line. Best player on offense, I do like the receivers. I like Jim Chaney, who I keep calling Jim Caldwell. But here's the thing. Ty Chandler, Tennessee's best offensive player. I'll go with that. I know the Vols finished last in rushing the SEC last year, but I like Chandler. I mean, I've liked him ever since he hit the ground running in that loss against Kentucky 2 years ago. I think he's a good back. I think he'll play in the pros. Best defensive player, Daniel Betuli. Who is he? A lot of people want to know that. When Daniel Betuli is your best defensive player, that's where you say, I mean, the line comes together. Guarantano, you can say what you will, but he did average 8 yards a pass. 12-3 is his TD interception ratio. I mean, come on. That line, what if what if Smith comes back and all that? And you cross those fingers. Wide receivers, they're always good at Tennessee. They should be good this year. Come on, Jennings and Callaway and all that. Yeah, I mean, you go, and you say, but they'll have to win 38-35 games. Just about. Anyhow, College Football News thinks that there could be more 38-35 victories than losses next year for the Tennessee Volunteers. So we shall see here. Okay, some more. Let me get back to baseball before we talk about sport we generally don't, but it's in the midst. Hey, what happened in Bristol? Drag racing. Yes, I know. What? You ever heard the sports update? We had the U.S. Open. Okay, so Koepka didn't win his 3rd straight U.S. Open, and it's difficult for me to talk about golf, really. I've always thought that the individual sports don't quite bring us together the way that the team sports do. Everyone in the Tri-Cities is going to root for ETSU. Everybody in Tennessee is going to root for the Vols. Everybody in Southwest Virginia is going to root for Virginia Tech, save for a few lonely Wahoos fans, right? You get that, right? All the blue-collar people in North Carolina will root for NC State. All the white-collar will root for the Tar Heels. You get that, right? Okay, so you get, everybody in Atlanta will root for the Braves. I mean, we understand that. So that comes in. What is the fan base? It's going to be scattered for any individual athlete. That's the thing. And I guess what? You got that Enoch won 22,000, finishing 71st, made the cut on the third day of the U.S. Open. They're all ecstatic about that. Actually, ETSU has named a new golf coach. They had a press conference today at noon. I think I know why they held it at noon, because they knew I wouldn't show up then. They knew that the tough questions would not be asked at that point. But I mean, if you really want to know, yeah, that's what I think is going on there. And all, so what can I tell you? By the way, a trio of ETSU players will play in the 124th Amateur Championship, including Samuel Espinoza from Spain, the rising juniors Shiso Go from Kanagawa, Japan, and Jack Ray from Jonesboro. Yes, actually a local golfer playing for ETSU. Hard to believe, I know. Anyway. By the way, Archie Davies from Carlisle, England. There's an interesting name of a town. They will also be featured. It's 288 men at the Amateur Championship. And they will, let's see here, it will begin. It's being held in Ireland, and the Junior Golf World Cup is being held at the Kyoko Golf Club Ishino course in Japan. ETSU is really promoting their, summertime overseas trips, aren't they? They're really going great guns trying to say, look at us, we go overseas. And all this. Baseball's popular overseas. Let's talk a little bit about this. I mentioned start of the program about, I mentioned the 92 runs that were scored in the Padres Rockies series. Maybe it's not that surprising that the Rockies would have high-scoring games. This is the most runs ever scored in a 4-game series, 92, between two teams. And I mentioned that, it was kind of reminiscent of those Little League games that you played that might go 14-13. And I mentioned they weren't necessarily all that well played. I remember once playing as a young boy in a Little League, and the rule was 5 walks and it's the end of the inning. And I mention that because here's how the winning run was scored in the Padres' 14-13 victory against the Rocks yesterday.
Right-hander Gray set 3-2. Low ball 4. My Padres take the lead.
Yeah. Anyway, here's some facts. They call it the epic Padres Rockies. All right. There were almost 2 inside the park home runs in the game. I remember in 1977, the Texas Rangers, I don't remember this, but I know they had inside the park home runs on successive pitches. Yankee Stadium, okay? But anyway, Ian Desmond, an inside the park home run. Do we have that by any chance? Do I get the Desmond home run or something? See if we can play. Well, I'll try to get to that maybe later on if we've got enough time. He raced around the bases on Friday night in 15 seconds. There were a ton of ejections. They said that wasn't going to happen. There was right field flooding. They're talking about all these things. And you know what it seems like? Right field flooding. That's something to remember. It's actually a factor that makes me think that maybe this isn't baseball played at a major league level. I mean, you can't keep the water off the field. Think about this for a second. Isn't that why we once had artificial surface? Isn't that why we have domed stadiums and the like? I don't know. Anyway, when we come back, Jerry Bonkowski is going to talk to us about drag racing. Hey, we had the Thunder Valley, and then, of course, NASCAR will continue. And guess what? The Truck Series, they took a victory away from a winning driver in Iowa. We'll talk about it all with Jerry after this.
WEMB Sports.